What is it like having a career?
Perfect hold open.
The Fifth Element.
And this is?
Leeloo Dallas multipass.
I auditioned for the role in full hair and makeup, and Luc Besson, he definitely saw something in me. We spent, a good 40 minutes in the room, so I felt confident that I did a good job. But then I never heard from him again. A few months later, I was with my boyfriend at the time, staying at the Chateau Marmont. We had been partying all night, as you do. I'd come down wearing his clothes, his baggy jeans, his t-shirt, my hair was a mess, no makeup. And I'm having breakfast by the pool, and who happens to be sitting at the table 2 tables down is Luc. And he saw me, and suddenly in his head, he saw Leeloo. He had his assistant come and say, "Oh, can you meet with Luc again?" I said, "Yeah, sure. Let me just get ready." And she's like, "No. Luc wants you to come exactly as you are now." Didn't want me to put a stitch of makeup on, So I was like, okay. That was where I think he saw the little animal in me. Luc definitely wanted to do a color for the hair that had never been seen before. They came up with this fluorescent orange and the blonde roots. It was almost like people working at night on the roads when they need to be seen, they would wear that kind of orange so you don't get hit by cars. In practice, it was difficult to keep up because what we didn't realize at the time was that my hair grows very fast. They would grow out literally every week. You would start seeing that little bit of dark hair. They kept trying to touch it up, but you have to be very delicate. You can't overlap. It was overlapped, and then my hair started falling out in clumps, and so we had to wig me. We timed it well for after she takes a shower and gets cleaned up, so it kind of made sense that it was a little poofier and more clean looking.
What's she saying? I don't know.
Luc and I were talking about Leeloo's birth, and I couldn't be naked, obviously, because that's weird. I said, well, when you think about scientists doing experiments, they want as little on you as possible. You need space to put in injections and needles. So I said, what if bandages came out of the machine? They just cover up the essentials. So it's as little as possible, but very utilitarian as well. Luc took that idea to Jean-Paul Gaultier, who loved it and ran with it and created, one of the most iconic outfits in cinema history.
If you want out, you're going to have to learn to develop those communication skills.
That was the scene that changed my life as an actress. That's where I really understood what it was to leave myself behind and become something else. And it's still when I watch it, it makes me cry because I see Leeloo and her innocence and her vulnerability. I feel so bad for her being trapped that way and not understanding what's going on. It still makes me cry. Resident Evil. I played the video game a lot with my little brother, and I wanted to produce it. I wanted to make the movie. And then I found out that he wasn't my husband then, but this guy had the rights to it. We reached out and he asked me to read for it. At that point I was like, hey, I'm the Fifth Element. You really gonna ask me to read for this? And he was like, yes. I came in just very nonchalant and saw this really hot young director, and I was like, ooh. And that was the beginning of the rest of my life. Costume design has always been something that I was very involved with through my entire career. The red dress was definitely something that I had envisioned in my head, something that was in between an evening gown, but at the same time could also look really great in a fight sequence with a leather jacket over the top. Alys was like a newborn. She woke up with no memory. She was the audience, in a sense. She discovered the world as we, the audience, discovered it. There's this dynamic between being completely innocent and then also being a complete master at what you do. I love to play with that, to be able to kind of like confuse myself a bit and confuse the audience a bit and humanize it. She was definitely a child being led into a very dark place, having to be baptized by fire in a sense. One of my favorite stunts, there's a few, to be honest, but it was Resident Evil 2, and I ran down a 60-foot wall, like straight down. And the only thing that's coming to meet me is concrete. I mean, we did this so many times, and I've never been so terrified in my life, but also just feeling so badass that I was actually doing it myself. I did almost everything in every movie I did. I loved doing stunts. It was a passion of mine. I always wanted to do my own stunts, and that was part of what I gave to my fans. You're coming with me on this adventure, and I'm going through it, and you're gonna go through it with me. Zoolander.
Derek, I'd like you to meet Katinka Ingabogovinanana. She'll be your day-to-day on the campaign.
Katinka was literally my mom. If my mom was in America, in the fashion industry, what kind of clothes would she wear? What, like, her makeup has always been like fabulous, you know, and like full on. You do the eyeliner, the mascara, the blush, the lips, the eyelashes, the everything. It was definitely an homage to her and her powerful sense of fierceness. My mom is a true queen.
You had us worried, Derek.
Everything's cool. I'm really super psyched for the show.
Ben was amazing. It was crazy to see him as Zoolander, going between playing Zoolander and directing all of us. Working with Will Ferrell was the best. We had so much fun, like joking in between takes, and he made me feel so comfortable. And it was really such a privilege and an honor to work with such talented people on that movie. The Three Musketeers. I loved making Three Musketeers. Not many people put me in historical pieces, and I don't get to look like a fancy lady much. I'm usually covered in blood and dust and extremely unpleasant things. So it was wonderful to play Milady and to be able to combine that with the fighting skills. And I just thought, wow, this is gonna be so beautiful to watch in the cinema, to see this woman with this great big skirt that you think should hamper her, but using it against her opponents and being able to like use it to her benefit. I love choreography. I love being able to use my body to do extreme things. So to be able to play characters like that have always fascinated me, because I always imagined myself when I was a kid to be like that ninja warrior. This gave me the opportunity to be a ninja warrior in bloomers. Dazed and confused. I'd had a really hard time as a child actor in Hollywood. I guess I'd never realized how savage adults could be when they criticized a child was just one of the most like soul-sucking, demoralizing experiences I've ever had. And especially being 15 at the time, it was like such an integral part of my development. And it just made me very insecure and really solidified in my own head that I was not a good actress and that I was just a pretty face. When I went into Dazed and Confused, I was shocked that I got the part. It was a big audition. All these really great actors were there. It was terrifying because I was at a real low point in my confidence levels with myself. And it was hard to feel comfortable with the amount of incredible talent on that movie because I just didn't feel like I was anywhere close to being able to go head to head with any of them.
Watch them fly.
So I was kind of like a loner, and I brought my guitar and I just played music on my own. And I think Richard liked that. It's probably why he hired me, was to just be that loner chick that smokes weed and plays guitar, because that's really what I was and what I played in the movie. The Messenger, a story of Joan of Arc.
I'm just a messenger. He needs me.
Joan of Arc could have been an amazing movie. Unfortunately, my relationship with Luke at the time maybe skewed his vision of what he wanted the movie to be. We were going through a divorce at the time. It was tough on him.
This morning, God gave us a great victory.
When I saw the finished product, I felt like he was mad at me. I felt bad about that because I felt like that was one of the greatest performances I'd ever given in my career. We had so many different levels from 1 to 100. And it felt like, because of the emotional involvement, the edit ended up being like 100 the whole way. I didn't want Joan to be so unhinged.
How dare you stop me from doing God's will?
He didn't tell you to cut all your hair off!
How dare you tell me what God tells me to do?
I wish that things had been different with that movie, because it had everything in it to be a classic, and it just didn't hit that mark.
John, what are you doing? You need to rest.
We must wake up the soldiers. Now!
That's what is extraordinary to me about acting, to experience things, to go on adventures, to go into these fantastical worlds and experience things I would never see through my own eyes normally if it wasn't for this team coming together to build this world around you and insert you into it and bring you into that moment. I got to wear armor and slog through the mud and gave myself a crazy haircut and was in the middle of war. It's definitely made me who I am. It's changed me because I've seen things that people would never normally see and been a part of things that people would never normally in our day and age be a part of. It was astonishing. Dirty girl.
This is Clark. He's from school.
Sue Ann, I'm Danielle's mom, but you wouldn't know to look at me.
It's a totally gross thing to say.
This was a really interesting project because, again, nobody was gonna think of me for this role. And Abe came and said, listen, I think it would be really fun for you to play this part because I've never seen you do anything like this. Ray's bringing the kids over for dinner later. You all think you're gonna be done by then?
Close the goddamn door. Leave us alone and let us concentrate.
And then I met Juno Temple through that, and she was just this young kid, had done a few things, but really at the beginning of her career, and it was like a revelation because she's such a talent. When I got off that film, I said to Paul, I think we found our queen for Three Musketeers. Like, you have to see this girl, Juno. She's kind of like, plays these kind of bad girls and, you know, runaways and strays, and I think it would be amazing to like put her in a corset and a beautiful ball gown and see what she does with it, because she's an incredible actress and I think she could handle it. And so it was really fun to be able to go on the Musketeers journey with Juno, because at that point, like, we were friends. And, you know, I love supporting young talent. I've seen quite a bit in my career. It's always been wonderful to kind of be the stepping stones that they take for their own trajectories through my movies, you know? Dummy.
We're gonna kick ass, man. I can feel it. You know, both of us. You're gonna be a famous dummy guy, and I'm gonna kick ass with my band.
Dummy was a lot of fun for me. I was at a place in my life where I really wanted to do as many indies as possible and flex as an actor and try different roles. And I knew that nobody was gonna pay me to be in a comedy or to play this kind of a part. So I was just like going out there, just trying to play as many different characters as possible. And Fangora ended up being one of them. And she was definitely a part of me at that time of my life in so many ways. She's loyal. She was a good friend. A Perfect Getaway.
Outstanding.
Perfect Getaway was a chance for me to hide behind like a normal person character, which I always found appealing, and was a huge fan of Steve Zahn and Timothy Olyphant and Marley Shelton, and I just thought, wow, what a great cast. And then suddenly, halfway through the film, this godlike creature comes into the mix, and he's playing this rando day player part. And I said to Paul, I said, mark my words, this guy is gonna be a star. And it was Chris Hemsworth, one of his first films. I could see immediately he would be leaping and striding way beyond Perfect Getaway and all of us. And he did. Like, it was amazing. The thing that was hard for me is I just had a baby. I had my first daughter at the time. She was 4 months old. And so I had to go on like a strict diet, train, and get back into shape to be like an action hero. And that was a little hard because, you know, there's like the guilt of being the working mother. I have to do this because I have a career, but at the same time, I would have liked to have just been a stay-at-home nursing mom for a little bit longer with my kid, rather than being in the gym, going on really strict diets and stuff. Having our first child changed me in so many ways for the better. It definitely made me understand that I wasn't the most important thing in the world. There was something else to put all my energy and thoughts into. So I got outside of my own head, and it was very kind of liberating in a sense. And then I feel like having more kids and getting older also is different. I think we change all the time. Yes, there's these momentous big changes in our lives, but like a lot of changes happen and we don't even realize they're happening. The things that worked when I had one child wasn't gonna work with 2 kids, and what worked with 2 kids wasn't gonna work with 3 kids. So it's constantly having to adapt and be ready to change your tactics and change your approach to life, to parenting, to yourself, to your work. I guess that's what kids definitely remind you so much of, is how we have to constantly evolve. In the Lost Lands.
I'm looking for a guide. Someone who knows the Lost Lands.
Why you want to leave the city?
The fact that I was able to play this character who was sort of this demigod. She's been around for millennia. She has this extraordinary power to grant people their greatest wish. It's a curse and a blessing all at the same time because people don't really understand what they want.
Friends of yours?
Yeah, I don't have many friends.
Me neither.
It was fascinating because I had a lot of questions. I had a lot of questions about her, and I still do. When I imagine somebody that's lived for so many centuries, do you even remember where you came from? How much can you remember? She definitely always keeps me questioning my humanity and mortality and just like seeing the magic in the universe. We definitely wanted her to have tattoos. Our amazing makeup artist, she was Icelandic, and so she knew Icelandic runes. She was able to make these temporary tattoos out of them, and she actually just spelled out everyone on the crew's name. When you see Grey Alys, like if you know how to read Icelandic runes, you can read like all the people who worked on the movie.
Really cool, though.
Yeah. It looked amazing. For me, it was like every time she grants somebody a wish, a new ruin appears. Like that was my thought process behind it. But I just love that like she was cheeky and sneaked like all the crew members' names in there.